Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be painting up Epidemius. This guy became very important with the new Nurgle data slates that came out for him when 10th edition dropped. Now before I get into the video, I would like to thank Apple for some reason automatically corrupting all my footage that I've collected over the past month or so of this model, and then charging me $1 to make it work so I could actually take it from my phone onto the computer, and then finding out that all the stuff was corrupted, quote unquote, because my current editing software couldn't do it. And then I had to go and find a different editing software, port all my stuff into there, so it actually magically worked over there for some reason. So thank you, Apple, for arbitrarily screwing me over and stealing $1 and wasting what precious little time I have on painting. And also, side note, due to hard realities of life, I've had to take up a second job, and that has heavily cut down on my painting time. And so I'm just trying to manage balancing painting and putting things out now. So with that out of the way, that announcement and that thank you, Apple, I want my $1 back. Here is the video. Now all the paint should have gone across the screen, and as I'm going through this, I picked up this model off of eBay for around $60. This is the original metal Epidemius. Now there are a few issues with it. The model has been warped a bit in some areas, the tusks on his feet and stuff, as well as hasn't been glued on properly. The guy is hovering a little bit above his seat, as well as there's some gaps towards the base. But on the upside, the base is magnetized with a magnetized mat, so that's actually pretty good. And I just bend the pieces of metal back into their what I assume is the correct shape. And then I use some modeling putty and green stuff. So the green stuff is to fill in the gaps of, so he's hovering like a few inches above his chair. I just use it to fill in that gap. I use it also to fill in some gaps that I find around the model here and there on its flooring. And I use the modeling putty to place it onto the base and let it dry. I'm going to do the base, the hard part of the base first, or the solid part, the ground, so it can dry in time so I can paint everything else around it, because I couldn't really remove it from the base that it had. It was really well attached. The model is fully assembled, and after the base is dried, we prime it with car primer. I use a matte black, and then we get straight into the pre-coating. I will use Eshin Gray, Pallid Witch Flesh, and White Scar White, which actually I skip out and I actually use a real white Acryl Pro, because I just found out that my White Scar White did not close properly and the entire content dried out. So roll with the punches. So basically what I do is I paint the entire model in Eshin Gray. I use an airbrush just for ease, and then from an upper angle down 45 degrees or so, I use Pallid Witch Flesh to apply a light, so light and shadow. Then I use the actual white paint Acryl Pro, and I dry brush the entire model. Now there's a reason why I really needed to do this. This model was made a long time ago. When they didn't make their models in computers, they sculpted them by hand to create the original. And there is a lot of weird clayish blob everywhere. The Nurglings are so indistinct that I actually have no idea what I'm looking at, and I have to apply these pre-coat layers and dry brushing to get an actual image of what on earth I am looking at even. And here's a blast from the past. We're playing an old favorite game of these metal models. The question is this some flash from the model, or is this a part of the model? Your guess is as good as mine. I guess that it was not a part of the model, so I removed this rope thingy that goes around that skull. I have no idea if that's actually part of the model. Alright, with Guilliman Flesh, Plaguebear's Flesh, Koala Green Shade, and Fire Slayer Flesh, and I actually did not use Lamian Medium, I basically used water instead. We're going to start with the Nurglings and stuff. The reason why I'm using washes, this is going to be a base color coating to help guide, because it is really hard to understand what I'm even looking at. These models are old and they're sculpted in a weird way, and so there's not clearly defined lines and stuff. So first, with Guilliman Flesh, I'm going to apply this all over the connecting flesh, this weird flesh thing that appears everywhere. It's like a connecting kind of fleshy stuff. I don't know, but the fact is I'm using it doing this now because it's in between the Nurglings and around them, so it is easier to do this now as best I can to find these things. Then I move over to Plaguebear's Flesh, and I apply a slightly watered down amount of Plague Bear's flesh. I also applied watered down Guilliman flesh on the previous step. Slightly watered down Plague Bear's flesh on all the Nurglings that I want to be green. I want to alternate the colors so that each individual can sort of stand out. So I also do the same thing with Coella Green Shade, but pure because it's a bit lighter. And then I water down Fire Slayer flesh and apply it all over. Now the idea with the three different colors is that the Nurglings will be next to something that's different colored so that each individual one will stand out better. And to the best of my ability, I did that. Alright, I want my model to be a bit more detailed since this is for my personal collection, so I went with Cadian Flesh Tone and Guilliman Flesh, and I'm going to redo all the flesh things. Now the first layer of Guilliman Flesh that I applied on them was so that I could see them clearly, really outline things, but now I'm actually going to go in and paint them. So basically I cover 80 to 90% of all the flesh connection things with Cadian Flesh Tone, covering the majority of it, and then I apply some watered down Guilliman Flesh all over. Then I re-highlight everything, but less, like maybe 50% or less, with Cadian Flesh Tone again. This time, doing sharp lines as best I can on the edges. Then I reapply Guilliman Flesh again, and then I re-highlight again with Cadian Flesh Tone on the most raised edges and pieces that I can find, stuff like that. And I did this repeatedly until I was satisfied. You might be able to do it less times, so. The model looked a little too bland, so I took Cadian Flesh Tone and Kisa Flesh and did an even further highlight on some of the more raised pieces of the thing, like little tiny taps here and there so that a little bit of paint went off, and on high edges, lines and stuff, just to make it shine more. Now with Nurgling Green, Plague Bear's Flesh, and Guilliman Flesh, we're going to paint, the green Nurglings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a base layer of Nurgling Green. I'm going to highlight pretty much all the... Actually, there's not even edges, but I'm going to create lines, edges, and things to sort of like give form to the random blobs, covering like 25 to 50% of all the blobs, and highlight the raised areas to lighten them, then apply a watered down layer of Plague Bear Flesh on them, and then re-highlight the most raised edges, lines, and stuff that I made beforehand. Then I'm going to take some watered down Guilliman Flesh, and I'm going to apply this in the folds of their flesh, recesses, and stuff like that to sort of add a contrasting color to make the other greens pop out more. Now with Thunderhawk Blue, Templeguard Blue, Coella Green Shade, Yandin Yellow, and in the future I actually forgot to get pictures of the other Nurglings, so Cadian Flesh Tone and Fire Slayer Flesh for the other ones. So for the blue, I mixed Thunderhawk Blue and Templeguard Blue, and I highlighted all the edges. I created the edges and highlights for all the blue Nurglings. Then I applied one layer of Coella Green Shade, and then I re-highlighted them again, focusing on their more raised edges, and I created my own edges and stuff to give form to their bodies. And then in the folds and area parts of their flesh, I applied Yandin Yellow to sort of give it a contrast to make the rest of the body look different. And somehow I forgot to get the picture of the paints I used for the red Nurglings. Basically, I highlighted everything with Cadian Flesh Tone, like 1 layer-ish, and then I applied watered down Fire Slayer Flesh to redden it all up. Very watered down, because that's a very strong contrast paint. And then re-highlighted here and there with Cadian Flesh Tone on some parts of the Nurglings to give them form and stuff. Now with Pallid Witchflesh and Skeleton Horde contrast, we're going to paint the giant maggots that are everywhere. Now note that the Epidemius himself has a bunch of maggots on his belly. In the future we'll just go back and redo them there, but I'm doing this step now just to move on from it. So basically we take all the maggots that we can find and give them a thick layer of Pallid Witchflesh until it's solid white color. Well, not thick, but like thin enough, and make sure it's one solid color. And once that's done, we're going to take some Skeleton Horde contrast, water it down a bit, and then apply 1 layer of it evenly across every maggot, and that's about it, and it just works well. Alright, with Doombull Brown, Baneblade Brown, and Rackhearth Flesh, we're going to paint their teeth. So some of the Nurglings have open mouths and teeth. So basically, we're going to use Doombull Brown and fill in their mouths to create a dark back barrier. And then we're going to use Baneblade Brown, we're going to paint every tooth. And then with Rackhearth Flesh, we're going to paint the dot, or the top, or the center line of each tooth. And that's pretty much it. Very simple, easy, done. Alright, with Baneblade Brown and Rhinox Hide, we're going to paint the wood on the chair. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. So there is grooves in the wood, but only on the back part of the chair he's on. The sides and stuff, only small pieces of them have grooves. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint the entire wood part of the chair, including the tusks, the back, everything, the sides, with Baneblade Brown. Then we're going to take a fine brush and Rhinox Hide, and we're going to basically draw squiggly lines up and down with some variation here and there, some thickness waning when waxing and stuff like that, to add like a wood grain to this. And this is the base coat, a strong dark Rhinox Hide contrasted with a very bright Baneblade Brown. Now, with Seraph Sephia, Plague Bearflesh, Adrax Earthshade, and Baneblade Brown, we're going to paint the wood again. So with Seraph Sephia, water down a little bit so we can control it better. We're going to apply, well, I'm going to apply as many layers until I get a good wood, earthy look into it, essentially. 1 or 2, maybe in the shadows a little more. Then we're going to take Plague Bearflesh, water it down, and then apply as much until I get like a greenish tint on the wood as well, to add some more character to it. Then with Adrax Earthshade, we're going to do this to create artificial shadows. Watered down, we're going to apply this where the light won't hit, in crevices, things like that, to add more dark. And we're also going to apply multiple layers of this to the tusks, to the front, the middle, and the back of the tusks. They're a little hard to find on the back because the Nurglings are wrapping their hands around them. And essentially we're going to apply a few layers of this to darken the tusks notably compared to the rest of the chair. Then we're going to take the Baneblade Brown and we're going to edge highlight parts of the chair, well, the edges of the chair and the tusks, which is always a bit hard to do these tusks right, especially since these ones, the metal ones, are uneven in size and shape. I've done them better before on previous models. I think, what was it? This Orc War Boss I did before, I did much better on the tusks, but then again the tusks were incredibly uniform and easy to handle. These were not. Alright, with Pallid Witch Flesh, Koala Green Shade, Gryph-hound Orange, and Adrax Earth Shade, we are going to paint Epidemius himself. So what we're first going to do, he's already pre-highlighted, dry brush, and everything from before. We're going to take Koala Green Shade and we're going to water it down a lot till it's a slight tinge, and we're going to apply it all over him. Then we're going to take Pallid Witch Flesh and a soft dry brush, and we're going to basically dry brush him sort of. What I did was I tapped it repeatedly, like pushed it and pressed onto it, and it created a more textured kind of look all over. Then I applied more Koala Green Shade, then I re-textured over towards, like dry brushed the highlights and stuff. Then once that was done, I then went back with more Koala Green Shade and painted directly into the recesses and some on the underside to make a transitional color or more shadow. Then I took Gryph-hound Orange, watered it down a lot, and applied it to where the major folds of his body were. And stuff to create like this orange stuff you find like when flesh is like stuck on couches and stuff like that. If you've seen like, what was it, my 600-pound life or something like that, you may see that there. And then with Adrax Earth Shade, I apply it into the deep dark recesses to create, so it goes from the bluish skin to the orange, then to straight dark brown. And then I do a pure Adrax Earth Shade on both of his eyes to make them noticeable from a distance. Alright, with Adrax Earthshade, Baneblade Brown, and Rhinox Hide, I paint his horns, and some of the horns that a few of the Nurglings have. So essentially what I do is, I paint the whole thing with Baneblade Brown as a base color. Then I take a little bit of Adrax Earthshade and apply it where the skin meets the horn, sort of to create like a division line. Then with Baneblade Brown, I mix a little bit of Rhinox Hide in, and then I paint like half the horn this color, and then I paint thin lines going up the horn. And then I repeat that process again, adding more Rhinox Hide into that mix, painting a further area up above the horn to be the pure color, and then lines going up into that. And I repeat the process until I get to the final pure Rhinox Hide, and I paint out some lines from that. To sort of do a transitional color, it's a bit meh. On some of the small Plague Bear or Nurglings that have horns, it's not that best. But I couldn't figure out how to do any better with the randomness. Alright, with Adrax Earth, Rakarth Flesh, Kisa Tone, and I don't use Plaguebearer Flesh, in the end I decide against it. I paint all the skulls that he has on his sides and up above and around. So I actually start off with Kisa Tone first, I had it in reverse order, and paint, that's the base layer on all the skulls, front and back. Then I apply a little bit watered down layer of Adrax Earth all over the skulls. And then I re-highlight everything with Kisa Tone, only the deepest, darkest recesses still have Adrax Earthshade. And then with Rakarth Flesh, I paint thin lines on the edges of the bones, chins, eyelids, stuff like that, and a few lines on the top of the head for highlighting. And that is it. Alright, with Eshin Grey, Dawnstone, Administrative Grey, and Skeleton Horde Contrast, we're going to paint the glass on his Hourglass. So we're going to start with the base layer of Eshin Grey on the Hourglass. Then I'm going to take Dawnstone, water it down a lot, and then I'm just going to apply some layers. I'm going to put the brush in the center and then pull it away towards the main glass, and it sort of does a light transition somewhat. If it's thin enough and the paint, you can make sure it doesn't bead there. We'll actually do a bit of a good color transition. Then I go to Administrative Grey, water it down a lot, and do practically the same thing but halfway down each top and bottom half of the Hourglass. And then once that's done, I take watered down Skeleton Horde Contrast and apply a few layers of it, it depends on how watered down it is, to add sort of a yellow tint to it, to sort of make it like the glass of the thing is yellow. And with Doombull Brown, Rhinox Hide, and Abaddon Black, we're going to start the base layers for some of the metals. So with Doombull Brown, we're going to paint the frame of the Hourglass. With Rhinox Hide, I'm going to paint the bell that he has up above, and any brass, like he has a brass wrist, whatever it is, bracelet on his left arm. And then with Abaddon Black, I paint the shields. I completely forgot to get footage of that though. Then with Doombull Brown and Rhinox Hide, I paint what I can assume is like little bits of leather on the back of his couch thing. So basically I paint them Rhinox Hide, and then I take Doombull Brown and just paint on the edges with a thin down Doombull Brown. And with Caliban Green and Rhinox Hide, I start with this is the base coats to the flag. So basically, I take his flag up top and I paint them all Caliban Green. Then with Rhinox Hide and a decent brush, I paint the basic outline for a symbol of Nurgle, which I've seen 1,000 times, played their army many times, and I could not recall what it looked like when I needed to, but I got a basic shape down. Alright, so with Lauren Forest, Straken Green, and Nurgling Green, we're going to paint the flag. Now, I don't want the flag to be smooth. I want it to be kind of raggedy, like very thick cloth, or not high quality. So essentially what I do is I take the Lauren Forest, and then I, with a slightly frizzed out brush, I take it and watered it down, and then just apply horizontal strokes all along it. Covering pretty much 90-95%, even more, a little bit of the shadows. And basically what this did, this uneven paint, when it was watered down, some places had more paint than others and stuff, and it kind of created this like rough textured appearance. Then I did the same thing with Straken Green, but focusing more towards the more raised areas and stuff. And then finally I did the same thing with Nurgling Green, but a bit lighter and stuff. And the watered downness, the randomness, and the little bit of scruffiness of the brushes help create this more raggedy flag-like look. Alright, with Rhinox Hide, Doombull Brown, and Baneblade Brown, we're going to paint the icon in there. So with Rhinox Hide, I'm going to make the edges of the icon. It got a little bit painted over, so this is to refresh the edges. Then we're going to fill in like 90-95% of all the symbol with Doombull Brown. Then what I'm going to do is a few layers, although I didn't really get the footage of it. Apply some Doombull Brown mixed with Baneblade Brown and just apply like dots of it here and there in the center, creating like these circles and stuff. Created the ragged pattern or look to the flag. Alright, with that out of the way, with AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish, we start varnishing. I use an airbrush to apply, and I apply 2 coats entirely. Because of how weird it is to hold and handle, it definitely needs something to help preserve it. Alright, with Iron Warrior, Hashut, Copper, and Runelord Brass, we're going to add the metals. Now, the Iron Warriors, I'm going to take it and I'm going to dry brush it on his sword and bits of pieces onto the black shield. Now, the sword was also painted Rhinox hide, just like the bell. I forgot to mention that. Then once that's done, we're going to take Hashut Copper and dry brush that onto his jewelry and as well as the bell. And this will create, like, it's dirty, but there's still some shiny metal through on the metals and stuff. Then with Runelord Brass, we will apply this onto his sword and a light dry brushing and a little spatter of it here and there for like nicks and stuff. And then we go back with Hashut Copper and apply it onto the 8-star of Chaos on that shield. I'm going to take Rise of Rust and I'm going to apply it onto some random splotches on the sword and stuff and then spread it out a bit, and just to add some more character to his weapon and such. And with Liquitex Gloss Varnish, we're going to apply this a bit to water down a bit. We water it down and then we apply it to the bits of flesh that are everywhere. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And with Nurgle's Rot and Uriel Yellow and a little bit of water, we then apply this onto these spots where the Nurgle's Rot will go. The gap where he's sitting, some drops here and there. Oh, I took Caliban Green and did a base coat of it there. I did that earlier, so I just didn't bother to film it. So Caliban Green base, and then Nurgle's Rot mixed with Uriel Yellow to create this yellowish green, snot green. And then I just finished the base, and it is done. Oh, also I put gloss varnish on the glass of the Hourglass to make it shine. Alright, done and done. I would like to again once again thank Apple for making me lose very precious time I had to actually work on this on my days off, on my limited days off. So times are tough, but here we go. So overall, the model, it is a blast from the past. The absolute undefined randomness of a lot of the old models, the old Nurglings. I really wish I had some of the old Nurglings. I actually never did. I played them, but that's because I used green putty, sculpted some random Nurglings, and counted them as Nurglings, and got away with it. The GW back then was a bit more gracious with me and my own made models. As far as this, there is a lot of character. I really like the old character of the old Nurgle. They were diseased and they were mean, and not these mentally challenged jolly guys now. So I do like his model. I do like how it appears. I like his sword. I like his appearance, all the doohickeys and stuff. The model definitely needs to be remade. There is a slight issue. Painting him was actually very difficult because he is metal and he's actually really heavy. And I was having a lot of trouble properly holding him in order to paint him carefully without damaging him. I mean, sure, I could hold onto the base, but that was a little slippery since I couldn't really grab it right. And so, like this is important for tabletop, but I don't exactly know where to grab him repeatedly for tabletop. I mean, sure, he's going to be sitting in the back, farming CP and giving 4-up invulns to the nearby Nurgle characters, or Nurgle plague bearers, but like, there's no real good place to touch him, to hold him. That's why I gave him 2 coats of the varnish. Yeah, it's a bit difficult to decide where I can actually grab him safely. Alright then, well, apart from that, so moving on, as far as the model goes, it's hard for me to give it a rating because it looks good. The oldness is cool. I was able to bring out a lot of the character. His face is clear and distinct, his weapon is clear and distinct, his chair, the different aspects of it is clear and distinct. I was able to bring out the Nurglings. Because of the different colored Nurglings and stuff, you can easily look and see the differences of the characters, the differences in the model. You can easily see all the different details that the model has. So it is hard because it's a different old model. Some things worked well, some things didn't as well. You know what? I'm going to say because it's compared to the old stuff, oldhammer, I'm going to say this is a 9 out of 10. It's like, if you grab this and put this next to all those old armies from like 15, 20 years ago, this would be up there. This would be very good. Not heavy metal. It's not there, but it's really above standard tabletop for that time period. Alright then. So, I don't know when I'm going to get the next video out after this. It's more of a matter of me trying to find the right time. I'm actually very busy. I'm busy all the time. So, it's going to be difficult to pump them out until like summer. So, like the video if you like the video, share if you want to share, comment if you want to comment, and more to come. No idea when that is. Bye.